What are the reasons Russia is not allowing Ukraine to join the EU? What will happen if Ukraine entered the organization? We will analyze everything here. Hello friends, welcome back to Country Economies Explained. Today, we are going to discuss an interesting as well as informative topic. We have already seen the war going on between Russia and Ukraine. What are the reasons behind it? And what will happen if Ukraine entered the EU? So stick with the video and watch it till the end not to miss any point. This video is going to be full of surprises. On February 28, only 4 days after the commencement of Russia's special military operation, the Ukrainian government issued a formal request to join the European Union. This was a step that Russia had long opposed. The European Commission made a recommendation that Ukraine is awarded candidate status to become a member of the European Union. Now, all 27 member states of the EU need to come to an agreement in order to award Ukraine candidate status. This topic will be debated at the Summit of EU Leaders on June 23 to 24. However, in order to get full membership status, the process might take years or even decades after the candidacy has been approved. Georgia and Moldova both filed their membership applications 1 week after Russian soldiers invaded Ukraine in February, and their applications will also be taken into consideration at the Summit of the European Union. The European Commission has recommended that Moldova be granted candidate status, and officials from the nation have expressed their satisfaction with the decision. They anticipate that EU leaders will give their assent the following week. However, the European Commission has said that Georgia must first fulfill a number of prerequisites before it can be considered for candidate status. It is true that Ukraine is a member of the European family. It may take a nation that is in the midst of a conflict several years to meet the stringent requirements set out by the EU in order to become a member of the group. The demands vary from the establishment of democratic governance to the creation of a democratic and competitive market economy. These discussions have the potential to become very difficult. According to Bruno Leite, a senior fellow on security and defense at the German Marshall Fund of the United States in Brussels, who used the example of Turkey, which has been a candidate nation since 1999, it does not entail that it ends with membership. On Thursday, the heads of state of France, Germany, Italy, and Romania traveled to Kyiv and expressed their support for Ukraine's participation in the European Union, beginning with the position of candidate state. Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, said that Ukraine belongs to the European family, and Mario Draghi, the Prime Minister of Italy, added that the most essential message of our visit is that Italy wants Ukraine to be a part of the EU. Will Daniel, an assistant professor of comparative politics at the University of Nottingham in the UK, stated that solidarity and Ukraine's membership in the European Union doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same thing. However, European leaders have used Ukraine's membership in the EU to demonstrate their solidarity. I fear that for the EU to state that Ukraine is now a candidate nation, it may be perceived by people as different than what it really means in terms of practice, he continued. It is important to note that Ukraine has not yet been accepted into the EU. Many people are curious about how the cash that the EU provides to Ukraine may change if the membership application is accepted. The European Union has provided Ukraine with almost 2 billion euros in aid so far in order for the country to acquire various pieces of military hardware, with the most recent authorized package amounting to 500 million euros. According to Daniel, the accession of Ukraine to the candidate pool should not have immediate repercussions for the forms of assistance and support that are now being made available and might continue throughout the course of the next months. Since the Russian military first invaded Ukraine about 4 months ago, both sides have continued to struggle for their own conceptions of what constitutes freedom. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights of the United Nations claimed that as of the end of May, at least 4,031 persons have been murdered, including almost 200 children. According to figures provided by the OHCHR as of June 9, about 5 million refugees from the conflict in Ukraine have been documented as having fled to Europe. According to Leite, even if maintaining territorial integrity is not a requirement for formally entering the EU, everyone knows that you need to govern your territory before you are approaching the European Union. In 2014, Russia took control of the Crimean Peninsula and seized it from Ukraine. Since then, Moscow has supported rebels in Donetsk and Luhansk, which are both located in the southeast of Ukraine. Now Ukraine is facing more breaches of its territorial integrity as a result of Russian President Vladimir Putin's signing of an order to issue Russian citizenship and passports to Russian-occupied territories of Kherson and Zaporizhzhia. These districts are located in eastern Ukraine. We can assume that Russia would attempt to destabilize Ukraine's territorial integrity in order to maintain the nation in this order, Leite said to Al Jazeera. The goal is to impede speedy development on this EU talks. It is probable that it will take years for Ukraine to restore and enhance the functioning of its institutions. Once this is accomplished, only then will it be able to gain the approval of all EU states. Leite stated that the conflict will make things more complicated, and she went on to say that the focus and the resources of Ukraine will probably go largely toward the war, which means that fewer resources will be able to be spent on the discussions with the European Union. Leite also stated that the focus and the resources of Ukraine will probably go largely toward the war. It would be a huge step for the EU to take if it accepted Ukraine as a member. Ukraine is a country that is home to 40 million people. For instance, given that the 750 members of the European Parliament are distributed according to population, this move would result in other countries losing seats and, as a consequence, influence. There is unanimity among member states, but it is obvious that the European Union is still divided when it comes to actual membership, Leite said. The European Union is still split when it comes to true membership. It has been more than a decade since a country moved on from being a candidate to being a member of the organization. Croatia is the nation that achieved this transfer most recently in 2013. The EU is being accused of being sick of expanding, Leite said, adding that this move may be a positive signal for countries like Serbia and Turkey. Leite's statement was made in response to criticism that the EU was becoming tired of increasing its membership. However, becoming a member is a case-by-case process that is managed on an individual basis, and each country is needed to fulfill a set of requirements in order to be considered for membership. Nevertheless, there have already been discussions regarding the countries that are still around. Scholz extended his aid to both Ukraine and the Western Balkans in their aspirations to become members of the European Union. He also suggested that both regions become members of the EU. His objective was to lessen the amount of influence that Russia had in the region. There are now 4 countries that are candidates for membership: Albania, North Macedonia, Montenegro, and Serbia. Membership discussions for North Macedonia and Albania are slated to begin in March of 2020. Both Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo are candidates that might potentially join the European Union in the near future. Ukraine is very necessary for the continued growth of the European security architecture in the years to come. According to Leite, there can be no stability in Europe without stability in Ukraine, and membership in the EU will add to the stability. There can be no stability in Europe without stability in Ukraine. What do you personally think behind this perspective of Bruno Leite, a senior fellow on security and defense at the German Marshall Fund of the United States? And what would be the further stand of Russia on it? Do not forget to tell me in the comments. That's all for this video. If you like the information, like it and share it with your friends. If you want to watch more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.